everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's review we are going to be concluding the 86 movie figures by taking a look at none other than the Transformers Studio Series Leader Class Grimlock and Wheelie. Now before we take a closer look at the main figure himself, I first of all want to just have a very brief discussion with you on the topic of masterpiece figures and of course the new upcoming Studio Series 86 line, and that is the term mini masterpiece is certainly a phrase in which recent years I have heard thrown around a lot, and I myself am certainly guilty of that. However, if there is one line that certainly fits into that category, it has got to go to that of the 86 movie line. Honestly, I really am unsure as to whether or not the MP figures will really have a place in the future if Hasbro and Takara Tomy are going to be continuously pumping out such magnificent figures like this at the retail price point. I really do believe that they have hit a pinnacle in their engineerings, and honestly some of these figures here are some of the greatest that I have taken a look at in recent years. So I would really like to know down in the comment section below on whether or not if Hasbro continues to give us such fantastic figures like we have seen in the past year, and of course here with the 86 movie line, will you continue collecting the MP figures? I certainly am really unsure myself. I really love the level of detail that we do get with the MP figures and the sophistication to the conversions. However, handling figures like Hot Rod and of course here Grimlock, I'm just rather unsure as to whether or not they have a place in my collection anymore. Starting off firstly by taking a look at the accessories, as honestly this is really where my only gripes do lay with this particular release, will of course begin with that of Wheelie, and I've got to say that in terms of sculpt work as well as paint application, I do believe that they have done a rather good job in capturing his appearance from the movie. However, in my opinion, this is a major missed opportunity. I would have loved to have seen a fully articulated, transformable version of this in the core class, as I really do believe that Wheelie is one of those characters that would fit that line perfectly. But nonetheless, what we do get is a pretty static figure which unfortunately doesn't transform, and if they had decided to leave this figure out, I'm pretty sure they could have found a way to have given Grimlock his sword. But taking a look there at the details, you can see that in terms of the face sculpt, I think that the sculpt work has come out incredibly crisp, and you can also see some really awesome reflective silver paint as well as blue there for the eyes. We've also got this really nice lighter shade of pink which contrasts rather nicely there with the painted orange. The majority of this figure, I have got to say, has been painted really nicely. Almost every other colour that you see other than the black and grey is indeed paint application. You can see that he does come with his slingshot, which is indeed removable. However, I wouldn't necessarily recommend removing it, as I'm pretty sure that if you were to drop it, you would more than likely lose it. He has been sculpted in a way so that you can get him into a pose much like we see when the Dinobots do indeed storm the Quintesson pit, and of course Wheelie does fire his slingshot at the Sharkticons. You can see here that in terms of the legs he is pretty much static. Articulation wise, we do get a ball joint here at the head which can look left to right as well as tilt side to side and look up and down. We do also get ball joints here at the actual shoulder section, so these can move forwards and backwards, and due to the way that this has been sculpted, you can also hinge this section here forwards. This one here can just rotate left to right as well as of course out to the side. We do surprisingly get a ball joint here at the waist which I was not expecting, and this too can also crunch forwards ever so slightly. And then turning here to the final point of articulation, we only do get ball joints here for the hips, so unfortunately no knee joints and no foot articulation. So pretty much this figure is intended to be that of a display piece or a companion piece to Grimlock, and in terms of actually storing him here in robot mode, we do get this huge tab on the underside there of the leg which simply can peg into either of the ports here on the top of Grimlock's shoulders. And I've got to say that when actually posed out on Grimlock's shoulders, I really do think that he does create for quite an awesome companion piece. However, once again, I really wish that we could have got a fully articulated version in the core class. Turning to the second accessory that we do get, unfortunately we only get one of Grimlock's weapons, that being here his blaster, but nonetheless the sculpt work in my opinion has come out really nicely. This has just been cast in an entirely black piece of plastic. However, you can see there's some really nice looking sculpt work, and of course it does just hold into Grimlock's hand via the tab there on the handle. So overall, in terms of accessories, whilst they're not bad, I just certainly do believe that Wheelie here is a missed opportunity, and I would have loved to have seen them include a sword. However, something which I have found works quite well is that of the Power of the Prime's Leader Class Nemesis Prime sword, or the Netflix Nemesis Prime sword. Whilst not perfect, I certainly do believe that it does the job rather nicely, and honestly I would have been happy if they would have just repacked this sword here with Grimlock. So certainly not perfect. However, if you really want a sword for Grimlock, I don't think that this one here will look too bad for display purposes whatsoever. Taking a look here at Grimlock himself, once again another smash hit by both Hasbro and Takara Tomy. It really does seem to me as if though I am just repeating myself in each of these 86 movie reviews. However, once again, I really do believe that they have absolutely knocked it out of the park in terms of matching this figure to that of his animation model, and when actually comparing his proportions to that of the masterpiece version, I honestly do believe that this one here does a better job than compared to the MP figure. And something worth noting is that when we did first officially get promo images of this release, I had pretty much made up my mind that this figure was going to be the highlight out of this first wave of 86 figures, and once again, upon handling this figure in hand, my initial presumptions have certainly lived up to the expectations. Starting off here firstly by taking a look at the head sculpt, you can see that the sculpt work is just absolutely tremendous. We've got all of the amazing panel lining detailing, which is very faithful to what we actually see on screen. I am a huge fan of the metallic blue paint application that we have got there going on for the visor. Something worth noting is that this entire figure has been solely based upon his appearance from that of the animation than as opposed to the toy accurate look. Personally, I have always preferred the look that the toy version gave off with the red visor and of course the transparent neck for the T-Rex mode. However, I'm pretty sure that we are going to see this mold later on down the line, and I would love to get a toy accurate rendition of this, but nonetheless you can see the entire front chest plate has been painted in this amazing metallic gold, which really does look as if though it has just stepped straight out of the animation. You can see that we have got a transparent smoky piece of plastic there with the Autobot insignia sculpted and painted underneath. As we turn our attention here to the shoulders, just absolutely loaded with sculpted in detailing. It really is candy to the eyes. The entire figure has just been completely sculpted with so much mechanical detail. As we take a look there at the bicep, you can see some fantastic sculpt work. Probably the only area of complaint that I do have with Grimlock here in his robot mode is that unfortunately they have not found a way to actually conceal the hollow gap that we do get here for the forearm, something in which the Masterpiece version was able to do. However, I'm pretty sure that seeing as we do have a slot here, a third party company will more than likely come out with a filler piece. As we take a look there for the fists, you can see that these have been cast in a really nice black plastic, and all of the sculpt work is indeed very crisp and precise. You can also see the claws there of the T-Rex mode situated on the arms, and as we take a look here down to the lower section, once again so much sculpted in detailing going on here, and you've got the really nice contrast of the red plastic as well as the black plastic there for the thighs. Something worth noting is that other than the hollow arms, they have tried their utmost best to ensure that this figure is pretty much filled out from all angles. So as we take a look at him here from the back, there are pretty much no hollow spaces whatsoever. So it really is a shame that unfortunately we do get the hollow gaps there in the arms, as they have clearly tried their best to conceal the inner sections here of the legs. And once again, he does feel like a very substantial leader, certainly a little bit more substantial than what we have even been getting with some of our War for Cybertron figures. And as we take a look here for the shins, you've got the awesome metallic blue, red and green highlights here for the shins, with some exceptional sculpt work for both the inner sections of the legs as well as the shins and of course the outer sections. And you can see there that we do have some nice black paint applications here for the lower sections of the toes. And turning our attention here to the back of Grimlock, we of course do have these shoulder pieces here, which are once again very accurate to the show, with the T-Rex here really nicely folded up and clipped nice and securely into place. Turning to the articulation here for Grimlock, the head is on a ball joint, so this can look left to right as well as up and down. It can also tilt side to side. We do get ratchet joints here at the arms, which could go to the full 360. We also do get a hinge joint here for the shoulder, a full 360 rotation here at the bicep, and once again the entire bicep is pretty much completely filled out, so no hollow spaces whatsoever. We of course do get a hinge joint here at the elbow, which can bend past 90 degrees, which once again is a really nice range of motion. And of course we do get a full 360 rotation here at the wrists, full 360 rotation here where the waist is concerned, as well as ratchet joints kicking all the way forwards as well as kicking all the way back to a great degree. The figure can of course do the splits all the way out to the sides, as well as a full 360 rotation here at the thigh. We do get ratchet joints here at the knee, which can bend to 90. And then turning our attention here down to the foot, this of course can rock side to side to a fantastic degree, and I'm so glad that they did indeed sculpt this section in as well. So no matter what pose you do have the figure in, it does look as if though it is seamlessly moving there with the rest of the leg, which once again is a really nice attention to detail. And you can also see some nice sculpt work going on here for an area of which you may not have noticed if they had decided to leave it plain. Turning to the articulation here for these back sections, these here are on hinge joints, so you can hinge them out to the sides as well as hinge these sections upwards. Of course, the T-Rex arms are on ball joints as well, so you can manipulate those in whatever way you so desire. So in terms of articulation as well as details, quite honestly, I think that this figure once again is pretty much flawless. I certainly have no critiques in regards to the articulation, and in terms of detail and sculpt work, for the most part, I think that it's pretty much spot on, other than we do unfortunately get the hollow gaps here for the arms. For some size comparisons, here we have the new 86 Grimlock compared to that of the Power of the Primes Voyager class version, and quite honestly, I did actually think that the Power of the Primes Voyager was a pretty decent figure. The only area of which I believed it lacked was in terms of the whole combining feature, and of course, as it did have to combine, the proportions were slightly wonky. However, when comparing them, I do think that this figure here did quite a nice job. However, there is no denying whatsoever in stating here that the 86 movie version has a more cartoon accurate look than compared to that of the Power of the Primes version. And here, for a more contemporary leader class comparison, here we have the Siege Ultra Magnus, and you can see that Grimlock is actually bigger than that of Ultra Magnus. Just giving you a head-to-head, you can see that Grimlock can pretty much look all the way over the top of Ultra Magnus's head sculpt, so certainly a very substantial leader class. And whilst we have have got Ultra Magnus here, we can of course bring out some of the other Autobots. So here we've got Grimlock and Optimus Prime. We can also bring out RC as well, so just giving you a comparison between how they look. And here for an 86 movie comparison shot, we have Grimlock here compared next to some of the other Autobots, and in my opinion, I think that this here looks absolutely fantastic. If you are after a definitive 86 movie collection to display upon the shelf, I certainly do believe that all of the figures that we see here, minus Ultra Magnus and Springer in some regards, as they are slightly more stylized than what we see in the actual 86 movie, I certainly do believe that the rest of the figures will more than look awesome, and I am really looking forward to seeing as to what Hasbro have up their sleeves in terms of an Earth mode Ultra Magnus. And you can also see here how the small wheelie figure does also compare next to some of the other Autobots. Turning to the transformation of Grimlock, I was actually quite surprised to see that he is nowhere near as complex as I initially suspected, and if you have any of the more recent Grimlock figures or even the G1 toy, then you will pretty much know how this figure is going to transform. So to begin with, you're going to want to turn your attention here to the underside and just take these areas here and just clip them nice and securely into place. This one here does indeed lock, so you are going to want to clip that there over the top and just snap that in there, and of course repeat the same process here for the opposite side. We can then turn our attention here to this section, and you're going to want to pull this piece here all the way out and then just extend the tip of Grimlock's tail. Of course, come here to this piece and repeat the exact same process, so just hinge this there all the way there to the top. I then recommend taking the arms here and just hinging them out to the sides just to allow for some clearance, as you're then going to want to take this section and the fire and essentially untab it. And just to show you what I mean is that when we do actually get into robot mode, you can see that there is a clip that will peg onto this tab, so you're just going to want to take it and untab that like so. With that now done, we can then take this slider joint here and you're going to want to slide this in, and then this entire section will come over and just ensure that it will clip nice and securely into place, so that we are left here with an alignment which looks something along the lines of this. We can then bring this section here all the way over and just snap that into place, and of course come here to this side and repeat the exact same process. So just slide that there, bring this section here over the top and just snap that nice and securely into place. We can then take this section here and of course bring that over, clip both sections of the tail together until they peg in nice and securely. We can then turn our attention here to this front section, and you're going to want to take the main chest plate and essentially just untab this, and the entire section here will shift forwards. Now, something worth noting is that I was amazed to see all of the sculpting and detailing that we actually do get here for the hinge joints, as well as for these sections here, which get completely covered up in both robot mode as well as in dino mode. So really, this is something that you're only going to see during transformation, and once again, another fantastic attention to detail on Hasbro and Takara Tomi's part. When this section does come down, you can see that we do have a tab here and a tab here that will peg into this slot and this slot, and we also do have this section here which will clip over this piece, which will keep these here tabbed together, as well as will lock all of this into place. So just bring this down here and ratchet the legs backwards and just snap that in there nice and securely, and you can see there how that does all align up. We can then turn our attention here to the legs, ratchet these sections here forwards, take the fists and just rotate those in. Of course, repeat the exact same process here on the opposite side. You're then going to want to take this joint here and clip that into place. This is actually the elbow joint for robot mode, so for T-Rex mode it will indeed lock into place, and of course repeat the same process. We can then take the robot mode head here, snap that down, these sections will come over the top and down. Of course, repeat the same process here on this side, so just snap them into place, bring out the T-Rex arms, take the dino head, untab that and bring this down, and of course open the jaw. Turn your attention here to these sections, and we do actually have a designated hinge joint here for the legs, which is actually this one. So you're once again going to want to take this here and just snap that backwards, and you can see that it is this tiny clip that will indeed lock that into place. So just untab that and of course repeat the same process here on the opposite side. And there we have Grimlock fully transformed up into his amazing looking Dinobot T-Rex alt mode. Taking a look here at the details, once again another incredibly impressive head sculpt here for Grimlock in his T-Rex mode. You can see that we've got some fantastic panel lines there, as well as some nice sculpted in details along the sides of Grimlock's head. As we take a look at the jaw, you can see that the sculpt work there for the teeth, in my opinion, has come out really nicely. However, unfortunately, they have decided to completely miss out the front rows of teeth, which I have no idea as to why this is whatsoever, and it certainly does create for a rather odd look, especially when looking at him from a head-on perspective. But as we take a look here at Grimlock's Grimlock's neck, once again, they have opted to go with animation accuracy than as opposed to toy accuracy, and even some of the initial promotional images that we did get of this figure, having shown us him having a transparent neck with some really nice details underneath. I personally really do hope that we get that version in the future, perhaps as a Gen Select figure. It would be really nice to get this figure here in his G1 toy accurate colour scheme, and of course with the transparent neck. As we turn our attention here down to the main torso section, you can see that we've got some fantastic sculpt work going on here with some really nice red paint apps. The T-Rex arms too, in my opinion, have come out really well as well. And as we turn our attention here to the main torso, we do have the Autobot insignia, which has been painted really well with once again some really nice sculpting in details. As we turn our attention here to the legs, you can see all of the details that carry over from the robot mode. We've got the gold metallic toes there. Just overall, the figure is coated in surface detail. And as we take a look at him here from a bird's eye perspective, I think that this all cleans up really nicely. And something in which I believe that this figure does better than perhaps even the Masterpiece version is in terms of his overall proportions. I really do believe that the towel on this particular figure has come out really well. You can see that it is nowhere near as long as we got on the Power of the Primes version, of which I'll bring out a comparison with later on in the review. I do think that the figure cleans up really well. You can pretty much see that there is no excess robot mode kibble on this whatsoever. In terms of articulation, the head here is on a hinge joint, so this can look up and down. We also do get some jaw articulation, so this too can hinge up and down. Me, Grimlock King! We can also rotate the neck there left to right. The arms here are on ball joints, so they can rotate forwards and backwards as well as hinge up and down. We also do get a hinge joint here for the elbow, ratchet joints here where the legs are concerned, forwards and backwards, as well as a hinge joint here due to the shoulder articulation for robot mode. Full 360 rotation here at where I guess the thigh section of the T-Rex would be. We also do get a ratchet joint here for the knee, and then finally you can also pivot the toes here forwards and backwards, and even this back heel spur. So in terms of articulation for a T-Rex, I think that he is pretty well articulated. I maybe would have liked it if we could have got a ratchet joint out to the side here for the towel. However, that is definitely bordering along the lines of Masterpiece. And so turning to some of the figure's special features as well as accessory implementation, something in which I thought was a really nice touch is that they've actually sculpted in a peg in the back of Grimlock's mouth, which is indeed compatible with some of your Siege and Earthrise blast effects. So if I just take one here, you can see that we simply just tab that there into the back, and it really does give you the illusion that Grimlock is of course breathing fire. I maybe would have liked to have seen them perhaps include some blast effects with this figure, but nonetheless you can take pretty much any of the blast effects. I have found that either the Skylinks or the Omega Supreme blasts work the best, and once again that just creates for such a nice display and is a really nice attention to detail. Just setting that there off to the side, however, and bringing in Wheelie. This figure does indeed have specific tabs which will indeed lock him into place. So just to demonstrate that, you can see that we do have a tab here as well as a tab here, and basically it is a little bit of a stretch, but you are supposed to clip this section in there over the top, take this leg here and also bring this one over and just snap them into place, and there is Wheelie riding on the back of Grimlock, and that in my opinion just looks so awesome and really is what we see in the 86 movie when the Dinobots do of course storm the Quintesson pit, and just bringing in a Sharkticon in order to really complete the scene. I just think that this is so awesome. We truly are living in the golden age of Transformers in my opinion. But turning to the final weapon implementation that we do get here for T-Rex mode, we can take the blaster here which has two tabs here and here, and these simply do just peg onto the slots here on the back. So you just want to align these up appropriately, snap them into place, and there we have Grimlock with all of his accessories fully stored in the T-Rex mode. Turning now to, of course, some comparisons. We have here the 86 movie leader Grimlock compared next to that of the Power of the Primes version, and I go back to my earlier statement when comparing these two in robot mode in stating that I truly do believe that the proportions on this newer version absolutely obliterate the proportions that we did of course get on the up until now most recent version of Grimlock. And then of course comparing Grimlock to none other than the Commander class Skylinks, and just moving the camera back slightly and turning down the exposure so that we can better appreciate Skylinks, you can see that Skylinks certainly absolutely dwarfs that of Grimlock. However, for the most part, I don't think that the scale is that bad. I certainly don't think that it is spot on to what we see in the animation. I do believe that Skylinks was a significant amount bigger than compared to the Dinobots. However, in terms of a display, and as these figures here are mass-produced products, I certainly don't think that it is the worst. I'm not a Dinobot. And here for one final comparison, here we have Grimlock in his T-Rex mode compared to some of the other Autobots, and very similarly to what we saw in Robot mode, once again I think that the scale here is pretty much spot on, so certainly a fantastic display piece that will look amazing next to some of your other War for Cybertron and of course Studio Series 86 movie figures. And so, some final thoughts. Well, I think that this figure here is absolutely awesome, certainly one that I can highly recommend. As stated earlier on in the review, when we did first get official promo images of this figure and even the Walmart listings that this was going to be a leader class, I was absolutely thrilled, as although I actually did quite like that Power of the Primes version, it didn't really scale with any of our modern War for Cybertron figures, and I always was hoping that we would see the Dinobots in the War for Cybertron trilogy, especially when Kingdom was announced. However, when this figure did actually get unveiled, I was absolutely thrilled. Robot mode, once again, I think is pretty much spot on to what we see in the animation. Articulation is there. Accessories, well, whilst I do have some critiques in regards to the wheelie, I do think that it is a missed opportunity and that character should have had his own single-carded core class release. He is still a nice inclusion, and certainly when you do display him with that of Grimlock, it does create for a really awesome display piece. The blaster, however, is a real nice inclusion, and if you are really after a sword to plug onto your Grimlock, then of course you can take the Power of the Primes and Nemesis Prime sword, and I think that it does the job really nicely. The articulation is certainly there for a slightly more chunkier character. Barely no hollow gaps on this figure, which appears to be a trend that we are seeing with these new 86 movie figures. The conversion is simplistic, however incredibly effective, and once again harkens back to not only some of the previous Grimlock figures that we have seen, but when actually comparing how this figure transforms to that of how he actually transformed in the show, I think that they have pretty much got it down to a T. And talking of T, here we have the T-Rex mode, and the T-Rex mode is just as good as the robot mode. As stated, I think that this figure is certainly a contender for that of the Masterpiece. Of course, it doesn't have any of the gimmicks that the Masterpiece figure had, such as the flip around eyes and all of the accessories and lights that that figure did have, but for a mass-produced leader class, I think that this is probably the best that we are going to get, at least for a long time, or until they do bring out a revised version of an MP Grimlock. So with all that being said, he is for sure my favourite out of the first wave of 86 movie figures, and as a whole, I think that this line has been absolutely killer, especially for a first wave, and I cannot wait to see what they do with the likes of the rumoured leader class Slug with Daniel, and of course some of the future 86 movie figures. I really do hope that you enjoyed this review. If you did, please let me know down in the comment section below. Also be sure to let me know on whether or not you plan on adding this Grimlock to your collection, or if you're more than sufficed with your Power of the Primes version, or even your MP figure. I thank you all for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.